Imagine, if you will, you've just got married. You're so excited and you're looking forward to this wonderful future. Then 2 weeks later, your mother dies, which sends you into a 3-year depression, drinking, and becoming over 60 pounds overweight. This is a story of Jason Priest, who's worked through that with the support of his loving wife to now come out the other side and help dads find their way forward, find their purpose, and find meaning in their life.
Welcome to Share.Care, an all-inclusive community sharing experience, strength, and hope to create strong, healthy, and inspiring relationships. Share.Care communities work toward every individual feeling safe, valued, and heard, free from the threat of danger, pain, or harm. Each episode, founder Damian Andrews explores the principles underpinning Share.Care and invites expert special guests to share their knowledge so you can easily reap the benefits so many others experience. You hold the choice to create your future. Let it be with strong, healthy, and inspiring relationships.
Hello and welcome to the Share.Care podcast. Our belief is that global peace starts at home. Feeling safe, valued, and heard gives you a foundation to confidently step out and make the world a happier and safer place for everyone. Because in today's world, it's in your own selfish best interest to help others. Now, today we have Jason as our special guest. Now, Jason helps dads become a powerful father figure through fitness, family, finance, and freedom. He's a registered nurse, personal trainer, fitness nutritional specialist, and a performance coach. Jason's methodology is to build elite confidence through sustainable weight loss and mental toughness. Jason Priest, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Damien. I appreciate you having me on, man.
It's a pleasure to have you. You're powering through and helping a lot of people, which is wonderful to see. Do you want to step back a little bit and just take us through a little bit of your background and the challenges that you faced to lead you to do what you're doing now?
Yeah, 100%, man. So I'll kind of give you the shortened version, and we can dive in on and expand on anything you'd like. So ultimately, I'm a father first, right? So that's my top priority in life, and it has not always been that way. We don't start as dads, right? But
No,
I went through my own health journey, and my health journey actually happened prior to me becoming a parent.
Yeah.
And I was about 60 pounds overweight. My mom passed away when I was 25 years old. I had just gotten married to my wife. We'd been married for about 2 months, and I lost my mom. And
Wow.
so I went through a bit of a depression, was drinking heavily, eating a lot of fast food, and just turning to crutches to cope with the death of my mom. And we were very close. My mom was one of my best friend, and my wife was also getting close to my mom at the time as well. And so we were excited. We were newlyweds, and here we were. And then boom, 2 months after our wedding, mom was no longer with us. And so I put on a bunch of weight. We moved away, and I got really depressed. And it was just a very, very tough time in my life. And I got fat, man. And I was a high school soccer player. I was playing on 5 different teams at a time in high school, and that was my life. And so all I knew was being an athlete and conditioning and staying in top shape so that I could play soccer and be competitive.
Yeah.
And so when I got fat and started struggling with my weight, I didn't really know what to do, because I was completely opposite of what I had done prior. I knew what I needed to do, right? But I didn't. And so it felt like, and you've probably heard this before with other people that you've talked to that have gained weight, but it feels like it happens overnight. And I had vivid memories of sitting on the curb in our little hometown when my wife was in pharmacy school at the time. And I remember trying to talk myself into going on these 1-mile jogs, and the pain that I would feel in my back and on my knees trying to go on these jogs. I was like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. And so essentially, I went through my own health journey prior to ever getting passionate about health. And so fast forward to where I'm at today, and health and fitness are simply the foundation for living your best life. If you're not your healthiest, you're not your fittest, you're not going to have the energy levels like you should. You're not going to be able to perform at your highest level. And therefore, opportunities and doors that open in life won't be coming to you as quickly as they could if you are feeling your best, performing your best. And so essentially, I figured out a way, if you will, and a way to make things simple when it comes to health. I got very involved in the psychology side of things and in the mindset stuff. And that's really where I resonated with, with my message and what I wanted to do when I finally decided to start my business back in 2018. And so, a lot to unpack there, lots of areas we could go, but that's a little bit of a snapshot on how I got here to be with you today.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I mean, there was a period where I was overweight as well. But just from your perspective as well, I mean, you're obviously very close to your mum. And, it sounds like your wife was becoming close to your mum, and then 2 weeks after you get married, she died. I mean, how did that affect your relationship with you and your wife?
Yeah. So my mom had a lot of health issues, and when I say she passed away, it was definitely unexpectedly. We did not she was chronically ill, but we didn't think that she'd be gone anytime soon.
Yeah.
And so it was a challenge, right? So my wife is also very close with her mom.
Yeah.
And so all she knew how to do was be there for me. And we were newlyweds. My wife and I only dated for about a year before we got married. And so, it happened pretty quick for us. And so, my wife's parents live about 5 hours from us. And so my mom was living where we live now, pretty close. So we would see her fairly often. And, it was a newlywed, and mom was part of that, right? And so all of a sudden she's gone, and my wife didn't know how to react because she's never dealt with anything like that, right? And at the time I was 25, I'm 43 now, so this is quite some time ago.
Yeah.
And so, when in terms of our relationship, there were definitely some challenges and some bumpy roads along the way because of what I was doing and what I was grieving and that sense. So I'm sorry, I am a father and I do have a kid that's screaming at me right now, and so that's part of the interview. I'm sure you've had this before.
That's perfectly okay, Jason. This is the life we live. COVID has taught us to be very flexible, I think, in how we deal with things.
Yeah. I was expecting my wife to be home by now. She is almost home, and so I didn't think I'd have a visitor, but I do now. So if you hear a 2-year-old chiming in the background, that's who that is.
What's your son's name? Your 2-year-old.
I have Colin and Blake.
Colin and Blake. Yeah. It's beautiful. So,
thanks, man. Yeah. So anyway, so that's so it definitely caused some challenges with our relationship for sure.
Yeah. Well, so from that perspective, and it's fine, Jason. You don't have to be concerned. I mean, this is I'm a dad myself, and I understand how it all works, and
sure.
it's real life. Let's be real here. We've got things, and people, I think listeners understand. Well, I hope they do that. We have a life, and sometimes kids need attention, and no matter what we're doing, sometimes we've got to give them attention. Sometimes we've got to step back a bit, and that's all okay. Well, certainly is from my perspective.
No doubt. No doubt.
So from that, I mean, you mentioned before, you were talking through that you were close with your mum, your wife was getting close with mum, you newlyweds, you said you met each other, a year before you got married? Is that the case?
Yeah, we only dated for about a year before we got married, yeah.
Did you know each other much before then, or was this, you met each other, started dating and got married?
Yeah, no, we met, started dating, for about a year. We knew each other for a very brief time, dated for about a year, got married. Here we are. And I'll tell you, let me add on to that. So we, in the beginning of our marriage, we thought we were going to be the cool aunt and uncle, right? And we didn't want kids. We were anti-kids.
Oh, really?
And that changed for us. So we
intentionally,
we were married for 10 years. Intentionally, yeah. So we were married for 10 years. Before we decided to have our first kid. And we were going to be the cool aunt and uncle, and we just wanted to do lots of vacations and have freedom, and we did a lot of that. We went on a bunch of cruises and did a lot of that fun stuff. And now I'm glad we did, because I have a 7-year-old and a 2-year-old, and like I mentioned, I'm 43 now, and so they keep me young, but they're certainly not they're not the best to travel with or go do vacations right now, especially at 2. And so yeah, fun times.
So from that perspective, I mean, you said that you wanted to be the cool aunt and uncle. Do you have many siblings and many sort of
Yeah.
nieces and nephews?
Yeah, so my wife, I have one brother, a half brother, and he's about 20 years older, or 20 years younger than me. Sorry.
Oh wow!
So he does not have any kids.
Yep.
Yeah. My dad remarried and had a kid with his second marriage, and so I have a half brother who is like 22, and so he does not have any kids. Luckily, my sister, I'm sorry, my wife, however, my wife has a 2 sisters and a brother. And so out of those kids, we've got my 2 boys have 5 cousins. So they have a niece and I have a niece and nephew with her brother, and then 2 nieces and another nephew with her sister. So yes, there are lots of kids in the family. And so the cool aunt and uncle thing was going to be true. We decided that was selfish and that we wanted our own. So.
Did you live up to the expectation? I mean, if we were to take the kids, your nieces and nephew aside, would they say yes, they are the cool aunt and uncle? Or
probably not, because we don't embrace that title anymore, right? We're parents now, so I don't have time to be your cool aunt and uncle when I got to go deal with my own kids. So I would say we're pretty cool to them, but I don't know that they would give us that title now that we've got our own 2 little rugrats to take care of.
Yeah, it's kind of something we aspire to being this, cool thing. But I'm sure you've seen the eyes roll from time to time when you do something that you think is cool, and they go, "You're just so not, young anymore."
It's the kind of the dad joke mentality, right?
Exactly. I take pleasure in telling really corny dad jokes that just people go, "Oh."
We all do. That's a dad thing, right? The cornier, the better.
Exactly. So coming back to your mum's died, which has obviously taken a pretty big impact on, because you said, did I hear right that there was some drinking involved as well? And, obviously it would be.
Yeah. So I've got a bit of a checkered past. So I grew up in a single parent household with my mom.
Yeah.
A lot of drug use going up. I had a very troubled teenager years. Was moved out of one of my schools and then moved back into my school, and just a lot of turmoil, a lot of commotion. My dad and I are not very close. A lot of just internal struggles as a teenager growing up with really trying to find my way in the world with a mom who was an alcoholic and smoked in the house, right? So that whole environment, as I'm growing up with a mom who is drinking every night and is smoking cigarettes in the house every night. And I'm supposed to figure out life on my own. And my mom was great. Like she provided guidance for me. She was an awesome mom, but she had her own set of struggles, which put a lot more on my plate. And so I got very heavily involved in the wrong crowd, got in a lot of trouble, a lot of drug past and a lot of addiction in my family. And so, yes, when my mom passed away, I'm like I'm the weekend drinker, right? Like my mom, or if my wife wants to go and have a margarita or 2 on a patio, I'm in, right? That's my jam. But I'm not the guy who's getting hammered on the couch every night and waking up hungover on the couch. That's not my lifestyle. However, when my mom died, I did turn to a lot more drinking because I didn't know where to turn to cover up that pain. And so, I was drinking a lot, eating a lot of fast food, and just started packing on the pounds.
Yeah. So from that perspective, because you mentioned that your dad not in your life from the very beginning, or was it you had some experience with him and then he left?
He's in my life. We're just not very close. Not a lot of. It's a very shallow relationship. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah. Well, I was just trying to understand, because obviously growing up, and you said you had some troubled teenager years, which is not uncommon. I deal with that a lot, and I certainly had my share of misbehaving when I was younger, and to put that in context as well, when I was 18, I think it was 19, I used to drink 2 bottles of vodka a day. So it was, quite a bit.
It'll catch up to you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I understand.
So, and I was just
Yeah.
wondering, like, from that perspective, when you said your mum was a single mum, was she, because my parents split up when I was in our year 7, so I think I was about 12 or 13. Um, and I was just wondering, from you said your mum was a single mum, was that like from when you were little, or did you have some time with your dad and he left, or was he just not there at the start?
No, he was there. He was involved. He had partial custody. He was a
Okay.
sports dad, very
Yeah.
obsessed over my soccer. Almost probably maybe trying to live out his own athletic dream through me, maybe.
Yeah.
Very obsessed, very overbearing. The dad that ran up and down the sideline screaming in a positive way, but also very embarrassing for a 12-year-old kid.
Yeah.
I had the dad that's screaming on the sideline. That
Yeah.
was my dad, right? And so a lot of resentment on my end
Yeah.
toward him because of that kind of behavior, right? And then as a teenager who's mixed up with the drug crowd and like the bad kids,
Yeah.
of course, of course, I got laughed at. I'm like, who's this guy, right? And so there was a
Yeah.
lot of resentment on that end. When I say partial custody, like when I went to go see him on every other weekend, it would be, I go from hanging out with my friends and spending the night and doing all that to now I got to go see my dad for 2 nights, right? And so it took me out of my fun and out of my environment, and so lots of resentment there, just in many forms, right?
Yeah.
And so just not a lot of I don't know, not a lot of father-son moments that I remember.
Yeah.
More so just, hey, I'm here for your soccer and we're going to make this work and you're going to become a professional soccer player, and that's what I'm here to do, right? So
Right.
from a son standpoint, exactly the opposite of what I want my children to remember me as, right? And so it taught me a lot of things. I learned some good lessons from it, but yeah, not a good relationship.
Yeah, so from that perspective, you're feeling that resentment because of, his behavior, and also too, like you say, he's taking you out of the fun times that you're having with your friends. Was that, I mean, how did
Yeah.
you deal with that? How did you manage that, or have you managed that? Could be another question. Is it still something that you feel?
I definitely still feel some resentment toward my father, but it's very minimal now. I will tell you that I'm a very big mindset guy.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of mindset training and coaching and leadership training and coaching, and just trying to work through mental demons for our men in our community.
Yeah.
Men just simply don't have a safe space. They don't have a place where they can be vulnerable. They don't have a
Right.
place where they can lean into other men.
Yeah.
Those groups are fewer and fewer, far between.
Yeah.
And so through this, we teach our guys how to overcome a lot of this. And a lot of that is through my own experience and just me working on my own mindset, my business partner working on his own mindset, and just going through, the journey of life, trials and tribulations of life. And so we created a little morning routine method, and it's called the GBR method. It's gratitude, breathing, and reading. And prior to creating that, and it's been a huge hit in our community, but prior to creating this, I was big into meditation, and I still do some meditation.
Yeah.
And I learned of a 6-phase guided meditation, and I started doing this, and I was doing it almost every day for about 4 to 6 months. And when I started doing that, there's a phase in the 6-phase guided meditation that's all about asking for forgiveness. And so I did this for about 4 months, and every week, and I finally decided that I was going to be the one that was going to reach out to my dad, because he doesn't call me much, right? Is on the birthday, maybe something like that. A very, very minimal contact.
Yeah.
I'm the one generally that leads that. And so I finally decided that I was gonna take the weight off of my shoulders, and I called him one day, and I'm like, "Look, man, let's talk." I apologize for every single thing that I've ever done.
Yeah.
I asked him for forgiveness. I asked him to accept my apology for everything that I've ever done. Did the same with him, vice versa.
Yeah.
And it was a feeling like I took the high road because he would have never done that.
Yeah.
Even though, in my opinion, probably should have been the other side, right?
Yeah.
But that practice and eliminating that weight off my shoulders,
Yeah.
I now can go to my own grave knowing that I did at least what I could to clear the air, clear the baggage, right? And so it was a very challenging process for me to go through,
Yeah.
and there will never be. This is not a relationship that's like repairable, right?
Mm.
My dad's just, we're not on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
He's got his own views, he's set in his ways, and so am I now. And so there's not a lot of rekindling of this relationship, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's rocky, and it is what it is. And so that's. But yes, I did. I worked my way up to that through the 6-phase guided meditation, and I swear by it. It's something that we do at our retreats for our guys now that come out to our retreats, because it's a very powerful practice. But like with anything, just like when you go to the gym, you can't go once a month and expect it to work.
No,
Same
that's
thing with
right.
meditation, man. It's got to be a normal thing for you to get the true value of it. And I did. So it was good.
Yeah, because I'm really interested in that process that you went through, because, like you say, there are a lot of, and you experience it in your retreats. I experience a lot with a lot of dads that I speak to. There is where the dad figure hasn't been great, and the son is looking for. Growing up, looking for some example to follow, and if there's not one there, like more often than not, we tend to go into an area where it's not great, which I did a similar sort of thing. And so, just interested from that perspective of, how challenging that was, which you've explained that. But what did it do? Was it like a complete shift in that? And how do you also manage that expectation? Because I'm sure, like, a lot of people out there would want to rekindle that in their heart. They'd probably want to rekindle a relationship with their dad, but sometimes it's just not possible. How did you manage that? And because I said there's be a lot of people that would be interested to share in that.
I think that's a good question, and the reality is I just I got to a point in my life where there there has to be, with every relationship, it's a two-way street, and you know this, man. Like, it can't be a one-way street.
Mm.
And if there is not, like, you can go through your relationships in your life, right? And you can evaluate each relationship, and you can determine you could probably determine a percentage or get close, right, to the percentage of giving that is involved in the relationship, right?
Yeah.
Like, if it's a very healthy relationship, like my wife and I have a great relationship.
Mm.
It takes daily practice for us to have that great relationship. We are very committed to our marriage, and committed to having very, very great communication, and keeping that open line of communication so that we can grow as a couple.
Yeah.
And that takes, again, daily practice. And so I would venture to say that my wife and I probably have a 50% relationship, right?
Yeah.
Other relationships in your life, if it's a relationship that you try to keep alive, maybe it's a business connection that you have, right? And you're like, man, I know sometime that this is going to benefit me if I keep nurturing this relationship, but I'm just going to nurture it because it may benefit me down the road, right?
Yeah.
So that person might reach out to you on occasion too, because they think that you're playing the game, right? But there's a percentage of giving there, right? Like, you're not all in on that relationship.
Yeah.
And so when you evaluate your relationships with my dad and I, like, I would venture to say, and like, it's a 90-10 or 95-5 percent giving in this relationship.
Yeah.
And for me, I refuse to be the 90 or 95% giver. I am not going to try to maintain a relationship with somebody where I'm the one who always does the reaching out, right? Like, if we're going to have this healthy relationship, I need to see the reciprocation, right? It can't be a one-way street.
Yeah.
And so for me, over the years, you are what you are, right? Like, you can't put on a front in a relationship. It's either you're giving to the relationship or you're not. You're pulling away from it or you're not doing anything with it. And over the years, I realize that I'm the one that's giving most of this, right? It's a 90+% thing every single time. I'm thinking to myself, okay, like, yes, he's my dad, and yes, that's important, and yes, like, I'm here because of his sperm. Like,
Yeah.
there's some ounce of truth to that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
do I want to continue to pour into a relationship that I'm not getting much out of, right? It's like I compare it to, it's like cheering for a shitty soccer team or a shitty football team when they always lose. Like,
Yeah.
why am I going to show up emotionally for you and you give me nothing in return of joy, of fulfillment, of happiness?
Yeah.
And so when I finally came to that conclusion that it was me doing 90% or more, I'm not going to do that. I refuse to do that. That is below me as a person, as a standard of as a person, of one of my standards as a person. I refuse to pour into a relationship that doesn't have a two-way street. And so I just accepted it, man. And it's not an easy thing to do because, yes, again, it's my dad. Would I love for him to be more involved with my children? Sure. But we see each other 1 to 2 times a year. If Christmas time comes around and I ask my son what kind of Christmas gifts that I can tell my dad you'd like, and he's like, well, who's your dad? That's not my problem. That's your problem, right? Because you're not present. And so that probably doesn't answer your question because I never gave it that. I just didn't. I wouldn't pour into that, right? And so I just finally said, you know what? I'm done. I'll put in what I'm getting out, and this is the way that it's going to go. So
it sounds like that was your level of acceptance. Going, okay, the rules for our relationship is you've at least got to be giving what you're getting, and if you're not doing that, then we're just not going to have that. And you accepted that. That's what I heard from what you're saying. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment because look, man, in the beginning, did I want more? For sure. Because especially after I lost my mom, right? It's like, okay, well, I got one parent left. But man, like even that, I mean, it's just there's not a lot of warmth from my dad. I feel a lot of cold, like rigidity. It's just like I don't know, like there's not a lot of connection there with me. And so it's not something that I was willing to continue to pursue. Again, like I said, when I'm not getting anything back, right? If you're showing me and you're pouring out to me and you're like, hey man, I'm 70 plus years old now. And I want this, I want to be as close to you as I can. You know, I know I've messed up a lot, but like, I'm not getting any of that. Right. So if there was some of that coming my way, well, then I'd be pouring all out. Right. But there's not. And so if I'm not getting that, then I'm not gonna be the one to initiate that after all of these years. It's just not. I've accepted it for it is what it is, and that's where we're at now.
Yeah, because what I'm hearing is, from your perspective, this wanting your dad to be something that he's not was actually more detrimental to you in pursuing that rather than just accepting this is the way it is and then moving on. And sounds like you focused your energy into your children and your marriage. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. And look, we've all heard you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? And the reality is for most of us, that's some of our family. And so, I know there are people out there that would be technical about that and be like, well, not counting your family, right? And so for me, I have a small circle, and my wife's family has they've taken me in as one of their own. I have a very good relationship with my mother-in-law. I have a very good relationship with my father-in-law. I don't view him as a father figure, but that's okay. And so, it's just something that I've gotten to the point where I'm like, you know what? I've got the people in my life that I need right now, that I need the most, that I can lean into. And I'm okay with having a small circle. The bottom line, man, is like we're all spread thin, and you've got to pick and choose your relationships that you're going to pour into. And again, just like with my dad, I also have a best friend that I cut ties with within the last few years. And same thing there. Like it's just I'm not going to pour into a relationship that I don't value anymore. I'm in growth mode. I want to talk about the future. I want to talk about what that looks like and fun stuff and talk about the future and all that holds, right? I don't want to talk about remember when this in high school. I don't like the remember when game.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people in life get trapped with these remember when friends that don't serve you anymore. And one thing that my business partner and I are very big on in our community is encouraging our guys and letting them know that it's okay to cut ties with toxic relationships. It's I think a lot of us we get glued to these, and it's like almost like an obligation, right? Well, we were friends, so it's your obligation to continue to be my friend because we know each other. We've known each other for so long. I've known you for 25 years. We have to be friends. Well, no, you don't, because you know what? The time that I spend with you does nothing for me but put negativity into my mind. And so I'm going to choose to bow out of that relationship. Right. And I think if more people would embrace that concept, whether it's my dad, whether it's a friend, whether it's a cousin, I have a business friend that I'm that talks about, your family of choice. And we tell that to our guys in our community as well, is like, no matter, just because, so-and-so, your brother Dave says something. Well, your brother Dave might be a real jerk and might not have any of your best interests in mind. And just because he's your blood brother doesn't mean he's your true brother. What about the guys in here that truly care for you and truly will lift you up in a situation in a time of need, right? And so I love the family of choice mentality, because I think a lot of people would be more mentally healthy if they would go lean more toward family of choice versus blood family. I think a lot of us we have these obligations toward blood family, and it just causes us more and more heartache over the years, if you will.
Yeah. So it sounds like, from what you've done, because you mentioned they're your wife's family and you're really close with them. And, coming back to your GBR method, is that the gratitude part where you're going, okay, didn't have the relationship with my dad. This friend is not a friend serving me anymore. And I can relate to that. There's friends I've let go for exactly the same reason. It's just like not so, and, I had some friends where I would go and visit them, and then I got busy and then I didn't turn up, and I got a phone call going, why don't you come and visit us anymore? I'm like, and I'm thinking about it, and I was going, you've never come to my house at all. And I was like, that caused me to really evaluate that.
Yeah, there you go. Imagine that.
Yeah. And but is that the gratitude part? Like, because is that a way of moving forward with that acceptance of, okay, my dad's not the person that I want, but I've got these other great people, and is that where gratitude becomes really important?
Yeah, and I'll take it a step further and say that gratitude will change your life. And I will, I got into personal development when I got into business. It just kind of all came together. And I think there's quite a few entrepreneurs that go through a similar journey. I'm what I call a late blooming entrepreneur, if you will. I didn't start my business till I was 38.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a lot of direction. I didn't know what I really wanted out of life. And if you don't have direction, you don't have purpose, you don't know what you want, and at the same time you're in a place where you're like, you just want the quick dopamine hits to block all that out because you lack purpose. Well, then that's when like you're going out to eat for dinner more, you're drinking more, you're binge watching sports to have an escape. You may watch porn, you might get addicted to sugar. There's all kinds of stuff we do to cover up reality. And for me, when I lacked purpose and didn't really know what I wanted out of life, I did a lot of that, right? And so personal development kind of came into my life when I discovered that, holy cow, I'm onto something here. I know what I want. I feel a very strong conviction toward doing what I'm doing now. And in order to do that, in order to continue to do that, I need to work on myself. I got to get better at what I'm doing, and I got to get better as being a person and my own personal excellence in order to continue to lead our community in a way that I do. Because our guys, look, if they see Jason's down in the dumps and Jason's skipping workouts and Jason's talking, he's got mental trash in his head, well, what's that going to do for them, right? Like, I'm one of the leaders of the community. We have a very close-knit brotherhood. And so I take it very serious to lead from the front. And so when we talk about gratitude, man, it's something that changed my life, but I didn't even realize it at first. And it's another one of those things, like we talked about the meditation piece, right? It's got to be something that's consistent. And so with the GBR method is this, and we created a free 60-day program for guys to build confidence and work toward optimal health, but really focusing on that personal development side of things. And in this program, the GBR method is one of the requirements.
Yeah.
And what it is when you wake up to start the day every day, there is zero cell phone. Like, you can turn your alarm off or whatever you need to do to silence that thing, but there is no getting on the phone. All right. So first step is get out of bed, turn the phone off for no distractions, and then immediately write down in either a gratitude journal. Some of our guys, we have a Facebook post that we use in our group for our gratitude post. And so some of our guys will use that post to do their gratitude and then get out of there. And so that's what I do. So I'll grab my phone, I get up, I move away from the bed, I pull open, I go straight where that thing is. I put my 5 things of gratitude, and then I turn my phone off. There's no scrolling. There's no emails. There's no text. There's no Facebook post reading, no Instagram, none of that. You cannot allow any of that nonsense to be in your mind to start the day. You've got to tell your subconscious mind that you're in control. Yeah. And so we don't do any cell phone, no nothing, right? So very first thing, write down 5 things that you're grateful for. And this practice seems very surface level at first. It's like, okay, well, that felt cool for like 30 seconds, but like, okay, what do I do? People don't realize that it's the compound effect with gratitude, right? The more that you do this and the more that you practice this, the more that your brain starts to draw in the things that you're grateful for, starts to attract the things that you are grateful for and the things that you love into your life, and starts to push out a lot of the negativity, right? Yeah. So you're starting your day in a way where you're putting some positive thoughts into your mind, you're practicing what you're grateful for, and you're pushing out the negativity. As soon as you document those 5 things, we have you do 10 box breaths. So it's like I don't know if you know what box breathing is, but it's essentially you breathe in for 5 seconds, inhale for 5, hold for 5, exhale for 5, and then hold for 5 again. That's one cycle. So it's a box, right? Yeah. We have you do 10 box breaths. So 10 of those. Yeah. And then right after that, we have you read 10 pages of a personal development book. So we give them some recommendations. Some of those could be like Eat That Frog, Atomic Habits, The Slight Edge, something that's going to make you better for the day, something to put some positive thoughts, some leadership skills, some positive habit forming skills into your mind to help you focus for the day. So now you've done gratitude, you've done deep breathing, which is going to bring down your cortisol levels. It's going to help you get focused for the day. It's going to help you have a better outlook for the day. And now you've put some educational content that's going to benefit you and help you get better as a person, right? All in a span of 10 to 15 minutes. Yeah. And that practice alone, by getting rid of the cell phone and starting your day intentional, right? This is all about living life with intention and not being reactionary to life. We want to live proactively versus reactively. And when our guys start their day with that and eliminate all what they were doing before, the reactiveness, just that piece alone, man, 3 or 4 days of that will have your mind racing with new possibilities, right? And we've gotten tremendous feedback off of that, but we had to do something that was short, powerful, and punchy for guys because we're dealing with busy dads. They can't get up and do a 1 hour, meditation with a visualization and some self-care affirmations and all that. We got to have something for dads. And so we came up with this, man, and that GBR method has been a rock star for our guys.
Yeah, no, that sounds pretty amazing and short and sharp to the point.
That's it.
I'm 100% with you on for me, all my devices are on silent all the time. Like my emails don't ping.
That's good.
My phone's always on silent. If you want to catch me ringing me is not a good idea because I'll usually see the missed call the next day. That's how it's so much more peaceful. So I completely relate to that.
I love it. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you talk
That's good.
about because you're a dad, but to be a dad, you had to be a husband first. Now, I wanted to get a
Mhm.
clearer picture of this thing. So you've met your wife, you've spent 12 months dating. So you're a what sort of weight were you then? And then then your mum died 2 weeks later, and then is that when the weight exploded after that? Like you put on a lot of weight, and maybe explode is not the right word, but and then how did
Yeah, it's pretty close. Yeah. Yeah. So good question. I was when I met when I met my wife, I was working night shift
Mm,
in the ICU as a registered nurse,
yeah.
and so my wife at the time was a pharmacy technician, and she was delivering medications to the
Oh,
ICU medication room, and
I
so we
love it.
met in the
There's a
medication
movie in
room,
that.
and yeah, so yeah, and so we met in the medication room,
Yeah.
flirted a little bit, and then started dating, and here we are. But yeah, so when we first started dating, I was not in soccer shape, but if I was overweight, then we're probably talking 15 pounds, maybe
Mm,
max. When my mom passed away, because I wasn't in terrible shape for my wedding. I go back and look at the pictures, and like I had a little bit of a puffy face, but like I wasn't overweight like I was at my highest. And
yeah.
so when my mom passed away, I was still living in, or I was living in the town that I met my wife in. We
Mm,
didn't move away for I think about a year plus after that, and so I was working night shift, and I would go in every night. I would work night shift. I would get off in the morning. I would go straight to the golf course. On the way to the golf course, I would pick up a 6 pack of Tall Boy beer, and
yeah.
then I would go and stop off either at Taco Bell or Taco Bueno and get some breakfast. And I would take my 6 pack of beer
Mm,
and my breakfast to the golf course. I would meet my nurse golf buddies. We
mm,
would go golf until about 11:30 or 12 p.m. noon. I'd
yeah.
go home, go to bed, wake up the next day, and do it all again.
Yeah.
All right.
Wow.
So this constant cycle, and here's the crazy part is like what I didn't realize at the time is yes, I'm doing the drinking and all this, right? But like one thing we're really big on with our health pillars is sleep. It's our number one pillar.
Yeah.
Most people don't sleep enough.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize that alcohol actually interferes with your sleep drastically, right?
Yeah.
It will help initiate sleep, but it does not help you stay in REM sleep. It is
Mm,
a very big disruptor of sleep.
yeah.
And so I was drinking this 6 pack of beer, eating all this bad food, indigestion, all that. I'd go home, go straight to bed, and I'd go to bed my goal was to be in bed by noon because
Mm,
I had to be back up to get ready for work by 6 p.m. So I was getting maybe 5.5 hours of alcohol sleep,
yeah.
terrible sleep, going to work the next day on fumes, and
Yeah.
trying to do this whole thing over and over. So clearly, you could see in a span of 6 months or so,
Mm,
I put on easy 50 pounds just from those habits alone.
yeah. And so how did that, because from what I understand reading your material and the work that, I mean, your marriage is a big foundation of your life. I mean, how did that,
Oh
affect your
yeah,
marriage and your relationship?
yeah, it was not good. My we had some rocky times, and when my wife was in pharmacy school, it was a very challenging time for us because she was busy all the time.
Mhm.
She had a lot on her plate. She had to travel a little bit.
Yeah.
So she was gone at times. We had dogs. I'd be there alone with the dogs and just depressed by myself. Lost my mom. My
Yeah.
wife's busy all the time. I have no purpose at the time. I'm working as a director of nursing in a nursing home. So I'm going and getting drunk and playing golf and eating fast food every day while she's in pharmacy school. And this went on for 3 years.
Wow.
Meanwhile, she's just watching me gain weight and be unhappy the whole time. And so finally, her fourth year there, I'm clearly depressed at this point. And my wife, she was a nutrition major before she went to pharmacy school, so she knows about healthy food, and
Yeah.
she was a fairly healthy eater and never gained a bunch of weight like me.
Yeah.
And she would eat what I would eat. Like if we were eating pizza, she would just eat one piece where I'm eating like eight, right? So she knew the calorie game. She'd have a salad.
Yeah.
And so she could make it a healthy meal.
Yeah.
And so that last year, she finally started talking to me about it. And it hurts when your wife is saying something like, hey, you know, I realize that, you're going through a lot right now, and I love you no matter how you look. But, do you think maybe you might want to use the gym that I have access to? And so
Yeah.
she started making some comments like that, because we had a really nice gym when we were in the town that she was going to pharmacy school in. They had a top of the line gym that they gave all the pharmacy students access to in any of their family. And so I
Yeah.
had a free gym. It was like a $50-something a month gym, very, very upscale gym, trainers and all that there. And I never used it. Never used it until the final year.
Yeah.
And so when I told you earlier in the call, or earlier in the interview, about going for those runs, right? I remember I'd work myself up 30 minutes sitting on the curb, earphones in. This is what back when we had headphones, right? Headphones in, and I would sit there and just pep talk myself, trying to gear myself up for this jog because of how miserable it was. If you're 60 pounds overweight and you're a fat guy trying to go on a jog, that is not very fun. And that is not the best way to lose the weight, not the quickest or most efficient way to lose the weight.
Yeah.
And so for me, I did that for about probably 6 weeks and finally was like, okay, I need to do something else. And so I took my wife up on her offer, and I made a trip to the gym. And I decided, out of all things, that I was going to go try a spin class.
Yeah.
And I found a home. And the reason I found a home is because I finally had a community of people who were all there to get better and cared whether I showed up or not, or at least they said they did, right?
Yeah.
And so I got addicted to spin class. And within 9 months, I went from fat, obese Jason to skinny fat. Like, I lost all the weight, but looked terrible. I was like, all right, I'm not fat anymore, but I'm certainly not, I certainly don't look good.
Yeah.
And so I did that. I did the spin class for 9 months and then started working with one of the bodybuilding trainers up there. Kind of showed me the ropes and was like, hey, man, if you really want to change your physique, you need to be in the weight room. Let me show you a few things. And ever since, I guess that's been, 15 years. Ever since that time, that little period of time, I've been in the gym now 4 days a week doing heavy resistance training for 15 years. Easy. Yeah. Because of that guy and that whole setup. So community, my underlying point of that story is anybody who's struggling needs community. And especially when it comes to your health, if you can surround yourself with people who are all on a similar mission or similar journey, and they actually care that you show up, there's nothing more powerful than that. Like when they would give me guilt for not showing up, that would eat at me. And like, these people didn't know who I was from the next guy. But they knew my name and they knew that I showed up 4 days a week. And if I wasn't there, they were asking me questions. Just that process alone was enough to have me here with you today because it worked.
Yeah. Wow. Well, it sounds like, I mean, from what you're saying, your marriage provided you a lot of support. And because I'm interested in how that worked from that perspective, because you've been with each other for a very short period, well, what some people would consider a very short period of time. You've got married, and then all of a sudden, almost immediately you've changed. So your mum's died. Which, and you've got that, reason for, obviously your wife has shown a lot of understanding, but 3 years is a lot of understanding given that you've only known each other for a year beforehand. How does, I mean, what's the way that worked? I mean, how did that, because a lot of people, we have one side where they get together and they know what the person's like. The person might be a smoker, and then, a few years later, they're complaining that they're smoking and, because they always thought they were going to change. In your situation, there was something that kept you together. What do you think that was?
My wife she's Catholic. All right. So she has a very strong faith. And she also, Catholics, they're not fond of divorce. Yeah. And so we had some rocky times. And that word was never mentioned, right? We never talked about divorce or anything like that. But I knew that we weren't seeing eye to eye, and we definitely had some challenges. But luckily, and I believe this is a blessing, is that we didn't have kids at the time, which would have added a whole new element. And so we were, from the beginning of our marriage, we were very big on communication. It's been something that It's something that we place at a very high value in our marriage. It's
Mm.
something that we prioritize, and my wife does not hold back. And I appreciate that. All right. My wife is a tell you whatever the heck's on her mind kind of person.
Yeah.
And you are going to hear her out, or she's at least going to tell you. And whether you hear her out or not, she's saying it. And so, I appreciate that, because that puts me in a position where I have no choice but to at least try to hear her out and then decide what my next move is going to be, instead of her internalizing it, never sharing anything, and me trying to read her mind and figure her out all the time.
Yeah.
That doesn't work, right? And so I think that the foundational piece of any relationship, especially when we're talking about a marriage, is communication. Like, there's nothing more important than communication, because when you have an open line of communication, and you know that when something's bothering you or when something is really good in your life, that you're going to report that to your significant other, and they're going to hear you out, or at least act like they hear you out. Yeah. And then you guys are going to decide what the next step is together. That's a very powerful force. That's what makes a husband and wife a unit, right? That's what makes you guys a decision-making machine, and not he said and she said. And so for me, having that open line of communication with my wife, through all the turmoil, right? All the rocky ups and downs that we had. That's what has been able to allow, or that is what has allowed us to have so much growth in our marriage. And gives me the ability to tell you that I would literally do anything for that woman, because of how much she takes care of us, right? And how much she communicates with me, and how much she pours into our family. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of marriages these days that have that healthy line of communication. It pains me to hear when we have guys that come in, and like, I had a guy reach out to me the other day. One of the things that I've been really big on lately is talking about how bad porn is for marriages, or really men's health in general. If you're trying to have higher testosterone levels and more drive and more purpose, that's not a good thing for you to have in your life. Yeah. And so I've been very big on that lately. And I had this older gentleman reach out on Facebook, and he messaged me. He's like, "Hey man, why is porn so bad?" And I had to think about it a while back. This guy reached out to me a long time ago and told him that his wife is not attracted to him anymore. They don't have any kind of sexual intimacy, and yada, yada, yada. And so he turns to porn. And I'm thinking in my mind, like, okay, well, maybe if you cut that out, you guys communicated a little bit better and started actually working on the elephant in the room, maybe you could get rid of the porn and have a nice sex night with your wife, right? Yeah. So that's just an example, man. But communication is literally the most important thing in any kind of marriage, dude. That is why we have the marriage that we do today.
Yeah, it sounds like, listening to you talk about the relationship, what I'm hearing is your wife wasn't afraid to tell you what she needed. So you didn't have to try and work it out. And I think from a stereotypical point of view, guys are generally Mr. Fix-It. If we have to try and work out what you're thinking, we're going to struggle. But if you tell us you need this, not what's wrong with us, but it sounds like she was telling you what she needed as opposed to what was wrong with you. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and she's, yes, 100%, because she's not been, I'm not going to tell you that in our through our 17 plus years of marriage that she's never pointed out something that was wrong with me, right? Like that would be a lie. But generally speaking, in those situations, especially when it's especially when it's challenging times, she's going to tell me what's bothering her from her own standpoint, and then let me make an assessment of how I want to deal with that, right? And and that's one of the traits that I admire about her, because she is very blunt. She has no problem in telling you the truth and what's on her mind, and she refuses to be silenced on that. And she's half Lebanese, by the way, and so I think that might be a little bit of a streak in her. But I love it, because sometimes it makes things tough, but I always know that she's not keeping anything in. Like, I know that I'm going to know the truth sooner rather than later. And then, like you said, we're Mr. Fix-It, right? Then I can react and say, okay, what's the best way for me to handle this? so that everybody wins, because that's ultimately the goal, is that everybody has a positive outcome with whatever is going on. So.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful to hear because I mean, the communication side of things, and I'm going to quote my mother here because I mean, I say that grudgingly, but with a lot of love. But she was always,
I understand.
communication is key to any relationship, and I think you've hit the nail on the head there. You know, your wife is telling you what she needs. Yes, if there's something that she doesn't like, she'll point it out, but she's really talking about what she needs, and then you can go and deal with that, which I think is it sounds like well, from your perspective, sounds like it's created a really wonderful marriage.
It has.
Yeah. So let's move forward now. You've got, you've gone through. I mean, obviously, you've got a lot to draw on to help people because I mean, there's a lot of people that try and help people, but they've read it in a book. Where you've gone through, your dad hasn't been there for you. Your mum, is smoking and alcoholic, but you've still got a lot of love for each other. The mum then dies, and you have all these issues at the start of your marriage, which has just happened, and you've pulled through that, and you've supported each other.
Mm-hmm.
What drove you to want to help other people? What was the motivation to go, okay, actually, I've made it through all this. Oh my God, it's done. Thank God. I don't want to chill out on the beach. I'm actually going to go and create more work for myself and help other people.
Yeah, that's a great question, man. And it's funny because I believe that in some form or fashion, like, humans are just meant to serve, right? And so whether that means you work at the Starbucks, you're a cashier at Starbucks, or whether you're a orthopedic surgeon, I believe that we're meant to serve. And I think you can agree with me here, is that when you do something good, an act of kindness or an act of goodness for someone else, in any form or fashion, whether that's holding the door at the grocery store for the little old lady that's struggling to get through, or that's picking up the lady in the grocery store's the grocery line's keys because she dropped them on the floor, or maybe that's you go and you work at a soup kitchen, for the homeless. No matter what it is, giving is going to give you some sense of fulfillment, maybe minor, maybe major, but giving and providing for another human is massively powerful for our own our own well-being. And so for me, I knew that I wanted to help. I knew I wanted to help somebody. I got into nursing just by chance. It was we didn't even get into that story, but I never really wanted to truly be a nurse, and I just happened to take a quick path out of the troubled the drugs and the troubled teen scene that I was in, and I was like, I got to get out of this. So I chose becoming a registered nurse because it was a 2-year school. So it gave me a fast track to getting to where I could start making money and get away from the nonsense that I was dealing with, right? But when it comes to helping people, I knew, especially after going through my own journey, and being fat, and then going from fat and obese and overweight to having 6-pack abs, if you will. I knew that I could make it simple for other guys, and I knew that if I could get into their head a little bit and show them that, hey, like, you just focused on the wrong things, and if you can just focus on a couple of other things here, your life and your health will significantly improve. I started doing that. When I tested it a little bit, I realized very quickly that seeing other dads achieve success like I did, especially when it came to health, because I was giving them something that nobody else could. Only they can give that to themselves because they have to work hard. All I did was give them the tools to get there, right? Give them the support, give them the tools, and then believe in them. As long as as all those things align, they now get their health back. They get their energy back. They get their well-being back. They get their marriage back. They get their sex life back. They get their relationship with their children back. Some of our guys were almost dead literally when they found us, and now their life has done a complete 180. One of our guys was found down in a snowbank. His neighbor found him. Wow. He was walking home drunk from a neighbor's house one night and just gave up, just laid down in a snowbank and said, "This is it. I'm done." The neighbor found him a couple hours later. He came to one of our retreats, and he has been sober since. A year and 14 months, I believe now, or a year and 4 months, I believe, something like that now. all because of just getting into our world and seeing like, okay, these guys believe in me. They have a system. I know I need to do better, and changed his life. Right. And so seeing guys do that gave me a feeling that I had never experienced before through any other outlet in my life. Right. I've done just about every drug known to man, and none of them gave me the feeling of this. I've done lots of crazy things in my life, and nothing ever gave me this this feeling of fulfillment. And then we had our first retreat, which was a little over a year ago, and it was I had about a 6-hour drive home. We did it in Texas, and that 6-hour drive home for me, I cried the entire way home. I've never been so moved or had such a strong pull from my higher power telling me that this is why you're here, right? Yeah. And after that trip, and when I got home, I immediately knew why I was put onto this planet. I have no doubts why I'm here, and that's what helps me get through the hard days, because I know at the end of the day I'm here to serve. Yeah. And it's that, to answer your question, it's that sense of fulfillment. It's that that little fire that burns inside me, seeing somebody reach their weight goal or drop 20 pounds in the first month, and now they feel a hell of a lot better, or report back that, you know, their spouse and their relationship's the best that it's been in their entire marriage, because now they both feel good and they look good and everything's going well. Like that kind of stuff is what lights my fire. And so once I got a little taste of that, I was like, okay, like this is what I need to do, because if I just do this the rest of my life, I'm going to be a pretty fulfilled individual.
That's pretty amazing. Something stood out for me as you were talking there, and I've never heard someone say this before, but if you could expand on a little bit, where you talked about that sense of giving, that feeling of giving was better than anything that you've taken, you know, any drugs or anything. And it sounds like you've taken a few, you know, different types of drugs and had a bit of fun there.
Sure. Yeah.
Describe that a bit more. I mean, how did that, because I've never heard someone say that, but I get it. As soon as you said it, I went light bulb moment. Can you describe a bit more about that? Because I think people would really connect with that.
Yeah, 100%, man. And it's funny because I don't think I've said that a lot in my life either. And when I really think about it, it's just a different kind of feeling, right? Like when you, let's use the drugs for an example. Like, let's use a fun one, like ecstasy. Okay. Yeah. we'll go for the fun stuff. Yeah. So I was a rave kid. I don't know how old you are, but I went to raves. I was like a rave kid for a while, and this was my jam. And so I'd go dance all night long, take the hallucinogens and have a blast. Yeah. But ecstasy is probably one of the drugs out there that gives you that, you know, the best feeling, if you will. And so I'll use that one. And that 4-hour high from ecstasy, it's fun while it lasts, right? And it's it gives you it feels great. And then it ends, right? It's like with anything in life. Dopamine hits come to an end, whether it's sugar, whether it's ecstasy, whether it's heroin, whether it's a cigarette. Whether it's you just getting some likes on your Facebook post or your Instagram post, they're all dopamine hits. Yeah. And for me, giving was like a dopamine hit, like times 1,000 that just stays, right? It's like okay, I did this, but it doesn't go away. Like the feeling just didn't, it wasn't as fleeting, right? Yeah. Ecstasy wears off. I wake up the next day, I get up, I go on about my life. When I would give and when I would serve and when I would make a big move in somebody's life, right? Like like our guy that got sober, right? Yeah. When he reports back that I've been sober now for 14 months and, my kids come out of their room now because dad's not in a bad mood anymore. My wife and I haven't been this close since we were dating. We just bought the house of our dreams, like all of that. Like knowing that I played a role in that, but at a very, very unselfish level, at a very humble level, if you will, knowing that I had my hand in that is just, I don't know, man. It fills my heart with just the most amount of joy I could. It's not even possible for me to describe because it's a feeling as humans that I don't think I don't think every single human gets to experience that kind of feeling, because some people live their whole life without a purpose.
Yeah.
And so for me, going back to the gratitude thing, man, like I do have purpose. And when my purpose gets to check off a little box like that, you know, or some of our guys who, you know, I'm down 101 pounds. Will you guys come to my 50th birthday party? Like we had a guy that we flew all the way across the country because we had a guy lose 101 pounds, and his wife was like, please come to his 50th birthday party. Like going and doing that for him and knowing that I had my hand in that, like there's nothing that could fill my heart quite like that. And so when I say it's more powerful than any drug, that's what it is, because not only does it give me that fulfillment for that initial rush, but now like it stays. Like that's not going anywhere. Like this guy's life has changed, and I played a small little role in that. And like it's just I don't know, man. It's just a feeling that it's not describable, if you will.
Yeah, I'm asking that question because I relate to that from that perspective. I just never heard it put that way. And I mean, I drank a lot,
Sure.
and I did, you know, a little bit of pot when I was young. I didn't do any, you know, hard drugs or anything like that. So I don't have that experience. Sure. But so for you to say that, to have done those things and then go, because, you know, I'd love to know what goes on inside the body. Like you say, dopamine hit does wear off, but a giving hit doesn't. It just goes on, and you just always feel good about it. I remember, you know, I'm just relaying a story when it was nearly 30 years ago, when I gave some money that I didn't really have. It was the last note that I had in my pocket. The guy asked me for change, and I honestly said I didn't have change. And I gave him that note, and then he danced around the mall where he was, and I just sat there watching him, and I still feel high from that. And that's 30 years ago. So I'd be interested to know what goes on inside the body.
That's good. And I'll add to that just real quick here. You know, I think for me, man, when you, you know, I likened it to checking a box, checking the fulfillment box, right? It's like filling your cup. For me, you describe how this feeling never goes away, right? It's always there. Yeah. And I think that, you know, we can both agree that life is about creating memories. It's about creating moments, right? And so when you, these dopamine hits generally aren't a moment, right? Like none of my raves that I went to are a life moment or a life like they're memories, but it wasn't like a moment, right?
Yeah.
So for me, these giving abilities, these opportunities to pour into someone and seeing how much of an impact it can make on their lives, it's something that doesn't ever go away. It's a memory and it's a moment, but it's something that you can revisit. And when you revisit it, it's like the newness never wears off, right? Because you can always go back to that, and that feeling that you got when you did it the first time, it's always there. Because Dave, who dropped 101 pounds and has been able to keep it off ever since, and he's still doing really good. Well, that's 5 years down the road that he's still doing really good. But back in, you know, 2021, when you told me that you dropped 101 pounds and that we're the reason you've been able to keep it off so long, now I can revisit that and be like, well, shit, you're still down 101 pounds. You're still living your life on fire. But we did that back 5 years ago, and it still feels really, really good, right? It's like it just never leaves. And I think that's the reason why it's so powerful.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I'd love to hear those stories. And I'm sure, like, there's so much we've unpacked, but I'm sure we're only just on the tip of the iceberg here with the things we could unpack that you've experienced in your life. And maybe another time I'd love to come back and go through more. I do want to touch on, you know, what you're doing now with the business you're doing. And I've noticed in looking through it, the fours seem to be something that, you know, stand out for you, because you've got, by looking at it, you talk about, you know, we help dads become powerful father figures through fitness, family, finance, and freedom. So there's 4 F's there. And then you also talk about your 4 pillars, which is sleep, stress management, nutrition, and fitness. Do you want to get into a bit of why, you know, the fitness, family, finance, and freedom is important? And
yeah, for sure. So with our pillars, so we started in essentially just the health and fitness space, if you will. And when I met my business partner, we were very aligned on the fact that health and fitness is our bread and butter. We both know it like the back of our hand, but we're most passionate about being a father, working on our personal excellence, working on our personal development, working on our leadership skills, and just being better overall humans. And so when we figured out that we're very aligned on this, and that health and fitness are simply the foundation for living your best life. Because again, if you're not your healthiest, you're not your fittest, you're not looking your best, you're not feeling your best, you're not going to have as many opportunities open for you.
Yeah.
And so fitness is the foundation. And so when we originally started our company, or when we were working together before our rebrand, so we went through a rebrand about a year and a half ago, or 2 years, about a year and a half ago. And before the rebrand, we were all health and fitness, but still working with guys at a very high level, not your fitness in a box kind of deal, right? Like full coaching. And we started realizing that the more and more guys that we helped, the more and more guys who wanted more out of life. They would get healthy, they would lose the weight, and then they would decide, or then they would ask, what's next? Right? Well, okay. Well, like, I feel really good. I'm 50 pounds lighter. What's next? Well, like, what do you want to do next? What's next in your life? Then we started realizing that, man, like, these guys want to become the most elite version of themselves. They don't want just health and fitness, because the guys that we work with are very growth minded. They want to continue to pursue more. They want to continue to contribute back to the community. They want to start a side hustle. They want to start their own business. They want to be better fathers and better husbands. So when we did all this, or when we came up with all this, we're like, look, man, we need something that's really going to hit home for dads that are just like us, who want to get better in all areas. And so what we did, and with our 4 pillars of health, sleep, stress management, nutrition, fitness. What's funny is the stress management piece really is like, hey, we're going to fix your mindset too, but we're going to call it stress management. The GBR method, right? Would you look at the GBR method that I explained to you earlier and be like, oh, that's for my stress management for the day? No, you wouldn't. However, it is massive for stress management. And so what we do is we kind of combine it in a short, punchy way. We have some other stress management strategies that we go through as well. But sleep, stress, nutrition, fitness are our 4 pillars of health. And we're like, okay, we've got 4 pillars of health. We need 4 pillars for our fatherhood, because it's just not going to work. It's too wonky. And so you've heard the original 4 F's with faith, family, finance, and fitness, right? So that's a very popular one out there. I think Ed Milet uses it, and some other people that do the 4 F's. Well, I started thinking deeper about it. I'm like, okay, like, fitness can be everything. We can loop everything into fitness and health, because you can have mental health and mental fitness. You can have physical health and physical fitness. You can have emotional and spiritual health, or emotional and spiritual fitness, right? If you're spiritually fit, you've got a great relationship with your higher power. If you're not, then we got some work to do. So we felt like health and fitness could all be looped into one category with fitness. But then obviously as a father, family is a very high priority. Well, as a father, you're not simply a provider. You also are a protector. You're a leader. You lead by example, hopefully. And if you're not, it's time to do so. But you also have to have your finances in check, or at least be working toward that. At least be interested in doing more with your finances, so that you can support your family, right? You don't have to be just a provider. A lot of guys think that I'm a provider only, and that's why they get in such bad shape. But that's how we came up with those. So it's fitness, it's family, it's finance, and it's freedom. Our goal with every man we work with is to help them become free from fear and doubt around their health and fitness, their relationships, and their finances. If you can get aligned with the man that you're capable of becoming in those 3 categories, you've got the complete package. You are the dad that every son or daughter deserves to have. If you do not have those 3 things, then you better have your foot on the gas pedal, trying to grow in all areas of your life. Zach and I are not perfect by any means. We have a constant hunger for growth, and that's what we preach to our guys. Is I wake up every day with the focus of being a better dad, a better husband, a better father, a better leader for our community, a better business owner, all of those things, a better boss, right, for our employees. And so when you develop this constant growth in each of those areas of life, it starts to almost become an addiction, right? Because if you have a growth mindset, you're always looking for more. Not generally, we have our off days, right? You're going to wake up some days where you're like, I don't feel like growing today. I'm just going to exist, and that's okay, but you still show up. But when you get into growth mode and you start working on your personal excellence, you start working on the things are going to help you get better as a man, you want more, right? You start to look for more. And so that's really the breakdown of our pillars, man. And it's funny because when you relate that same concept to teaching your kids, right? Like, what do we teach our kids? Well, you want your kids to be a healthy, productive member of society. You want them to be a respectful human being. You want them to be somebody who loves others and does good for others. And you want them to contribute to life, right? Contribute and make the world a better place. If you want to be a janitor, you better outwork every janitor out there and be the best damn janitor you can be, but you better contribute to society, right? That's all we can ask for as a dad.
Yeah.
But as a father, those are buckets that you got to teach. Health and fitness better be a priority for you teaching your children, right? Like, it better be a priority, or you're probably tuned into the wrong show. If it's not, start working on it now. Your family, obviously, as a dad, your family is a top priority, right?
Yeah.
You better be, or you chose the wrong action as a dad. You should have never became a dad. And then finances. Again, these are the three things that are going to equal any healthy, productive member of society. And when you group them all into the fitness like that, when you talk about your mental, your spiritual, your emotional health, your physical health, and realize that just makes your health as a whole, as a person, that's really how we got the breakdown of our 4Fs compared to other 4Fs.
Is there any that are more important than the others, or is it fitness, then family, finance, and then freedom, or are they interchangeable? Is there any particular way it works?
Yeah, I think that the way that they're ordered and the way that we have it laid out in the curriculum is really because this is kind of how we mapped it out when we were really brainstorming and brain dumping, putting all this together, and is really, look, again, without health and fitness, you just don't have much, right? Like, you're never going to achieve success in any other area of life, at least to the fullest extent, if you're not your healthiest and your fittest, right? If you're 300 pounds and you're like, I'll use, we have an attorney right now who's working with us. He's a 330 pound attorney. He knows that if he's 200 pounds, he's going to do a lot better in business, right? He does well for himself now. He knows erasing the health and the energy levels and the health struggles and the weight issues is going to make him a better attorney. It's going to make him a better husband. It's going to make him a better father, right? And so when you have health and fitness as the foundation, you have to realize that is step one. You can't skip ahead to building building better relationships and trying to get closer with your spouse and closer with your kids. Meanwhile, you're ignoring your health. Like, it doesn't make sense, right? So there's progression. That doesn't mean you can't work on all of them at once. It just means that you've got to make the health and fitness a priority and get that to be your foundation. When that's the foundation, and I'm not advocating for every single guy out there to have abs. That's not what I'm saying. But if you are a healthy weight and you have functional fitness, you're a capable man. You're capable of helping around the house. You're capable of lifting a box in your garage without slipping a disc in your back because you have poor posture and you have poor core strength, right? Health and fitness is the foundation. When that happens, then your relationships are naturally going to get better. Your sex life is going to improve. Your communication is likely going to improve. Your mood is going to improve. Your confidence, both physical and with your health, are all going to improve, right? So these kind of things happen. They happen in tandem as you're getting healthy. Like, same thing with the sleep, right? We'll tell guys will come in and be like, well, my sleep sucks right now. I'm like, dude, you wear a CPAP every night, or you're supposed to be, and you're 100 pounds overweight. As you lose weight, your sleep is naturally going to get better. We still need you to make sleep a priority. It's not ignore the other things while I work on this. It's make this a priority as you're working on the other things. So with your finances, right? Like the attorney that I mentioned, he's never going to achieve his idea of success until he's out there with maximum performance, maximum energy levels, so he can go crush every case that he does and do really, really well, right? He can't keep up with all the cases right now because he doesn't have the energy levels that he needs to have, right? So that's the example that I use is, yes, there's a progression, but it doesn't mean you have to ignore the other pillars. It just means this health and fitness has to be the foundation, because if you lose sight of that, everywhere else is going to start to suffer.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And do you, like, when you explain these 4 principles, the sleep, stress management, nutrition, and fitness to the dads, do you get much pushback on any of those, and how do you overcome that?
Yeah, so a lot of guys, most guys think they're not very stressed, right? We're we're conditioned at a young age, especially in this country, that that big boys don't cry, or to rub some dirt on it, it'll be okay. I remember, getting bloody wounds playing soccer, and they'd look at it and be like, "Ah, it's fine. Just rub some dirt on it. It'll be okay." I'm like, my leg is gushing blood here. It's fine. Big boys don't cry. An example I use a lot is when you're out looking for, you're out driving around and you get lost. Yeah. How many men out there will refuse to pull over and ask for directions? Most, right? Yeah. We don't want to inconvenience ourselves to ask for directions, but if we did, it saves us 30 minutes or 60 minutes of time, right? So it's this stubbornness, but we're taught at a young age, right? Figure it out. You're a man, be big, proud, brave. It's all good. Yeah. Big boys don't cry mentality. And so we internalize a lot of that. We hold a lot of that in. And so men are very reluctant to be told that they have a lot of stress, or like, well, stress is or work is kind of stressful, but it's fine. I'll deal with it. I'm like, dude, no, like, you don't understand. Like, you're going to have to do some things that are going to be a little bit uncomfortable for us to unravel some of these habits that you've been forming for the last 20 years, right? Yeah. If you've never done a gratitude journal, it's a little weird at first because you're like, well, what do I write? If you've never done deep breathing, it's a little weird at first because, like, am I a hippie, a tree hugging hippie? No, dude, it's going to help you, right? And so yes, there's a little bit of a hurdle we have to get over with some guys, because, like, a lot of our guys, they're manly dudes, right? They're used to putting on their boots and going to work every day, and like some of our guys work in construction or truck driver, or some of our guys are attorneys, or they go and they do they're in sales or something, so they put on their big boy pants every day and they do the man stuff. When you start talking to them about meditation and deep breathing and gratitude journal, they're like, well, okay. And I'm like, dude, just trust the process and talk to me in a month when you feel extremely, extremely better than you do right now that we're talking, right? And so, or significantly better than you do as we're talking right now. And so getting the buy-in can be a challenge at first. But yeah, I mean, it's just guy stuff, right?
Yeah, I'm always fascinated by that, and what you say, and it does resonate, because the reason I'm fascinated with it is because, I mean, my background, I was posted to the SAS, which is, I think, your equivalent of the Navy SEALs, the best of the best in the military. And the guys that I was there with, they were obviously some of the toughest guys around, but they had no problem talking about their feelings. One of the most lethal guys, his hobby was sewing. He'd be there when not there, and he's with a sewing machine, doing all sorts of stuff and creating things with a sewing machine. So I was always fascinated when I see people go, "Oh, it's manly to not cry, or manly to," and I'm like, you're an office worker and you have no idea what tough is, and you're pretending. So I'm just fascinated. So do guys find that difficult, or how do you get them to overcome that?
Yeah, I mean, every guy's different, man. Like, it's it's funny because working with men, when I was in the hospital, I worked primarily with women. Yeah. And, going from working with mostly women to working directly with men and speaking to men like they're a man. When we do our calls with our guys, like, when I do a prospect call, these guys don't know who I am. And I talk to them. I'm not like a drill sergeant, right? I'm not talking to them like, I own them or anything, but I tell them the truth. I tell them what they need to hear. I tell them things that people probably haven't told them before. And so, when you get vulnerable with, especially from man to man, it's a conversation that men don't have very often, right? And so when you have the opportunity to let your guard down a little bit and get vulnerable, especially that first time or two, it's hard, but it feels good, right? It feels like, okay, like, that was really awkward. It was really weird, but it felt good to get that off my chest. It felt good to tell that to another man, right? Because men don't have other men. And so, to answer your question, I guess it's a case-by-case thing. But like, generally speaking, when we start talking about being brutally honest with yourself, leading by example, letting them know that it's on them. Like, I talked to a guy earlier today. He's 100 pounds overweight. Tells me his whole family's overweight. They've always been overweight. They're obese their whole life. Yada, yada, yada. Get that story a lot. Generally, it's a generational problem. And
Yeah.
I told him straight up, I was like, dude, it's on you to change your generational trend now. Like, you're a 32-year-old dad with 3 kids at home, and it is officially on your shoulders to change the entire outlook of your future generations, because it starts with you. Everybody before you has been fat, and now you're fat, and you're very overweight, right? You're to a point where 100 plus pounds, another one, right? 360, I think.
Yeah.
You are very overweight. And until you do something about it, nothing in your family is going to change, right? Not a thing. And so when he heard that, it's like, okay, like, that hit home a little bit. It hurt, but it's the truth, right? And sometimes guys just need to hear the truth. That's it. Like, when you tell them the truth, we're fed so much nonsense these days, the all-inclusive kind of mentality. It'll be okay. Like, you deserve this. Everybody's loved. Participation trophy. You get all this nonsense going, and it's guys don't hear the truth anymore. And when you tell them the truth and tell them, hey man, like, are you ready to be brutally honest with yourself? Are you ready to actually commit and, like, man up and do this for your family? Well, then, like, they start to talk to you a little bit different, because they're just not used to hearing those kind of things, right? And so that's a lot of the verbiage that we use, because, dude, at the end of the day, man, like, this is an opportunity to save your life potentially. Some of our guys come to us in really bad shape. Some of them already had heart attacks or heart surgeries. Some of them have advanced diabetes. I'm like, dude, it's now or never for you, man. Like, are you going to choose to save your life, or are you going to continue to spiral out of control, right? And so some of them have to be talked to like a man. It's my duty to tell them, because what's the worst they're going to say? No, or you hurt my feelings, right? If I hurt your feelings, that means I did my job. Whether you buy or not, no big deal. But if I hit you in the feels a little bit, and I at least gave you something to resonate on that might inspire you to change your life, well, then at least I gave you something to walk away with, right? Whether we do business or not, my goal with every guy that I speak to is to add value to your life and give you something to inspire your catalyst for change. Whether that's getting up tomorrow and drinking a glass of water that you wouldn't normally, or going and walking a lap that you wouldn't normally do. That's my goal. And so if that means being honest with you and hitting you in the feels a little bit and making it sting, sometimes that's what you got to hear. Because I come from the ICU, dude. I've seen a lot of young guys die with me doing chest compressions with their family in the room, standing there watching dad get his chest pumped on. It's the worst, and that's not what I want for anybody that ever potentially come in cross paths with.
Yeah. So do you think, like, today we've lost that with the PC world where, everyone's got to be inclusive, you've got to make everyone's, gets a ribbon for participation, that from a guy perspective, from a stereotypical guy, what motivates guys, we've lost something there where guys really need that tough love to say, hey, this is how it is, this is what you need to do. Do you think we've lost that, and how do we change that?
Oh, 100%. 100%, we've lost it. And, we've got, we're closing in on a 50% obesity rate in the United States. And so we've got a very fat, sick country. We've got big pharma and big food here that just have this, like, cow herding system of crappy food that leads to more medications, that leads to more doctor's visits. And it's just it's a cattle herding process. And so it's very sad. It's very sad to watch happen. But yes, immediate gratification, access to things, access to technology, Amazon, Netflix, DoorDash, all these things that just give you anything at your fingertip. That combined with our comfortable society. We used to hunt for our food, dude. We used to live off the land. And now some guys are afraid to eat a piece of eat something with gluten in it, right? So like we've stripped testosterone out of society. And you brought up PC a minute ago. I think that's one of the worst things to ever happen, especially to my country, is the term politically correct. You started that movement. You started giving out trophies for 7th and 8th place. And now everybody thinks they're entitled. I'm owed something. It's the sense of entitlement. Just because I exist, I'm owed this, right? We've gotten away from the hard work. We've gotten away from choosing the uncomfortable path. And that's what we preach to our guys a lot of times is, look, man, going to the gym is uncomfortable. Going to the gym is forcing your body to be placed in under adversity, right? That's helping you get better. taking a cold shower. I'm not a big cold shower fan. I know there's a big craze about it, but that's uncomfortable. Going out and going on a walk in the freezing cold, right? That's uncomfortable. We have to seek uncomfortable things out for us to grow and continue to strengthen ourselves as men, or else we're gonna continue to get softer and softer by society's standards. So yes, it's gone away. Your second question was, how do we fix it? That's a cultural problem, man, and it's going to take decades and decades of our mentality. Starts with the dad at home. Getting in my country, it's they took God out of the schools. They took God out of everything, and they've forced women into the workforce, right? So now we've got this younger generation who believes in the hookup culture. They don't believe in getting married and starting a family. They think that the woman should be independent and go make a lot of money. I'm not hating on that. Men should be independent, go make a lot of money. Don't live a minimalist lifestyle. Secure your future. Don't have family. Don't worry about God. Don't worry about the family unit. And here we are, right? So I think it starts with getting dad back and placing the amount of emphasis on having a healthy family unit that needs to be for our country to turn around. But it's we're decades and decades away from that, man. Like, we've got such a massive cultural problem right now. And be honest with you, it's all by design. We won't go into that. But we have a population that is obese, addicted to everything that they turn their head to, which is a very easily controlled population. I mean, just think about it. When you're fat, you're on government assistance, you're going to the doctor all the time, and you constantly put money back in politicians' pockets because you're a product of their system. Why would they want to get rid of that, right? And so it's a cultural problem, but it's a very deep-rooted cultural problem. And man, it starts with people like you and me to change it. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, I'm just interested to touch a little bit more on that, because listening to your talk, you're obviously a very, very committed and devoted husband. And I just want to touch on, let's put the father part aside from that, but you're a very devoted husband. Sounds like you listen to your wife. Your wife works and she contributes equally, and she's not afraid to tell you how things are. How do you think your relationship would be because you're also quite when you're saying it's being a man, you're going, this is my, I'm a hunter gatherer as well. But at the same time, you've got this, connection with your wife where it sounds like you're both on equal opportunity. You've both got equal opportunity to do things. How do you think that relationship would change with your wife if you weren't that manly man as part of that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to imagine that because my wife, she's not the most, she's a pretty tough girl, man. She's she does kickboxing. She's she's pretty fit herself and is a very active person, and she's not to be messed with. And so I've been married to her for so long that I don't know what it would be like, because I don't know. I don't know if she would be able to.
Might be. Would she be less attracted to you if you didn't have that manly component with all the giving and stuff that you have?
I think so. I do. I don't know that she would admit that, especially at this point in our marriage. But I do think so, because listen, I mean, there's a certain element to being a man that women are attracted to, right? Yes, there are men who are a little bit more feminine, who aren't gay or anything. They still get married. They still, I have some of those guys in my life that aren't your rah, in your face manly man. And I'm not that guy either. I'm not out hunting the land for my food and gathering my fruit tonight. That's not me. But I'm also not we call, I guess, the soy boy, right? I'm not the thin, or the soft, any of that. I have a stroke of masculinity in me, and it is not toxic. And I use it to assert myself, and for good reason, right? We need testosterone in society. But I do think that there would be a different dynamic, because my wife, she appreciates that when it's time to step up and be the man, there's one here to do that, right? Not every scenario or situation calls for the man of the house, but when there is one, she feels safe. She feels protected. She knows I can handle my own. She knows that our kids are safe, right? She knows that I'm going to do everything in my power to put their safety at my highest priority. And so I do think that there would be a different dynamic, and I'm not sure how that would go down.
Yeah, it's just something I'm curious about as to how, like you mentioned before, men have kind of, in a way, lost their way a little bit, but and I'm just wondering what that would be like, in the bigger, because there's a lot of, we're talking to women, there's a lot of women that complain that they can't find a man anymore as well. They're just looking for so I was just interested to explore that. But look, we have gone a bit longer than we anticipated. Do you want to tell us about how people can contact you? What are the best ways to? They'll be in the show notes as well. But do you want to just run through the best way people can contact you, what they should contact you about, and any of the specific programs that you'd like to highlight and promote at this part of the podcast?
Yeah, for sure, man. So we have lots of places you can find us. We're all over the place, but I think the quickest way to get a hold of us, like if anybody's interested in like working with us or like contacting our team or like immediate outreach, just go hit up our Instagram. That's at the Fatherhood Experience. We do a little bit of content over there. We're not like we're not big posters or anything, but our team is on Instagram every day because that's where a lot of our clients, inbound prospects come through. We do have a website, which is also thefatherhoodexperience.com. Our podcast, you can find our podcast pretty much on any platform, which is the Fatherhood Experience as well. The website is under construction right now, so all of our programs are not listed on there. However, we have a brand new program that is free, 60 days. We talked about the GBR method. If any of your listeners want to go and just implement the GBR method, just that by itself, I guarantee it will change your outlook on life. If you do that for like a week straight, all right, it's literally 15 minutes of your day. They can get access to that at the Fatherhood Experience /LP60. That's the name of the program. It's LP. It's Launch Protocol 60. So it's thefatherhoodexperience.com /LP60. Enter your details there, and you will get your free guide. I want to be honest and transparent because I've had one guy tell me that's not free. On the second page of that, there is an option to get our fitness app, get our LP60 course. If you don't want all that, just click no at the bottom, and then it'll take you to the next page and give you the free program. Yeah. We created this program as a way to help the masses really build mental toughness, build better health habits. And I'm telling you that the amount of time, the amount of resources and energy we put into this program, if any of your listeners do that and go through the free program, just do the free program for 60 days, I would 100% love to hear their feedback on that, because I just want the honest feedback. That's all I want, because I know that it's changed some lives already. And I know that we made it in a way that's very sustainable. Any dad out there can do it. We give you a cheat day. We give you an alcohol day. But if you follow this for 60 days straight, I'm telling you right now, you will not look back, and you'll be like, holy cow, that's the best free program that I've ever done for 60 days. And those are our resources, man. And anybody wants anything beyond that, they can click around and find us. So.
That's awesome, Jason. I'll definitely be forwarding that on to some dads that I know that could probably will definitely use that. So, thank you for making that free for dads as well. That's wonderful. Jason, it's been such a pleasure having you on the podcast. Yeah. Before we go, what are either one or a couple of key wisdoms you'd like to share just to close it out?
Yeah, I'm gonna since I'm a dad and I'm addressing dads, like this is my top advice for any dad out there, especially if you're struggling, especially when it comes to the health component, right? When you can grasp this concept, and this is like it's going to seem surface level, but when you really think about this, when you can make yourself your number one priority in your life, right? As dads, we're givers, we're providers, we're protectors, all this. We want to put everybody else first. And again, most dads that I've spoken to have that mentality. My family comes before everything. Oh, I can't do that. I got to take care of my family. I don't have time to go to the gym because I got to take care of my family, right? You're not going to be able to take care of your family if you're 6 feet under the ground and they're still here. Okay. Yeah. And so my advice to anybody out there, there's any dad out there that's trying to find their way. First, go get the 60-day program free. It won't hurt you to at least try, but make yourself the number one priority, and you put everybody else second, right? It's a totally different mindset than what you're used to right now. It's a complete mindset shift. It seems selfish, but it's the most selfless thing that you can possibly do. Make yourself the number one priority in your life so that everybody else gets the best version of you. And I guarantee you, if you grasp that concept, your life will get much simpler moving forward.
That's awesome, Jason. Thank you very much for sharing that. That's amazing. And it's a pleasure having you on the show. And hopefully we can have you back again sometime in the future.
Thanks, Damien. I appreciate you having me on, man. It was a fun interview, and I wish you all the best moving forward.
Thank you for being part of the Share.Care community and helping people around the world prosper. You're creating a bigger pie for everyone to share. The more people contributing to the world being a better place, the better the world becomes for others and for you.